Welcome back, beautiful, amazing human beings. This is Luke Radowski of We Are Change with another episode of What the Hell Really Happened. It was supposed to be in a day, it was supposed to be in a week. Now it's in the moment because there's so much news happening right now. And in this video, we're going to cover the British elections, the Comey distraction crap, the new war that Donald Trump is trying to start with Iran, the latest news with Qatar, and of course our favorite country of all, Saudi Arabia. Today is June 8, 2017, and a very important day in history where 50 years today we had an attack on the USS Liberty by the Israeli government that has killed 34 Americans and wounded 171 of them. An event shrouded in mystery and classified documents, and what many people speculate a false flag attack in order to get the United States into the Israeli war that was happening 50 years ago today. An attack that of course you will not read in the history books, not here on the mainstream media, and that the NSA is still keeping secret documents about and will not declassify them and release them so people understand what actually happened to the Americans that were wounded and killed by the Israeli military. And while the deaths of American servicemen and women of this country are being ignored not only by this government, not only by the history books, but also the mainstream media, now the mainstream media is focusing our attention on the latest testimony of ex-FBI Director James Comey, which they have been obsessing about for the last few days, having countdown clocks. Bars in DC are opening up early for specific watch parties of this, and as I'm watching it now, it's coming out to be a huge dud, with no new information coming to light, as Comey just released his statement yesterday and is reiterating the same thing, that Trump was just frustrated with the Russian investigation and never asked him to stop investigating. And I think many people have forgotten the hindsight when Comey said that he had not been pressured to stop any investigation within the Trump administration regarding Russia. But still, for some reason, the mainstream media is obsessing us with this information, talking about his potential impeachment, and ultimately really distracting us from the really bad things that Donald Trump is doing. And Trump is doing a lot of bad things, including now also starting a potential war with Iran. And there's a lot of things brewing in the Middle East right now that are very concerning that we're going to break down in this video right now. Iran just yesterday suffered a major terrorist attack that killed 17 people in one of their holiest places at the shrine of Ayatollah Khomeini and at their parliament. Of course, ISIS claimed responsibility as 6 terrorists took up arms, killed 17 people, and wounded 46 others. And you would expect after such a major terrorist attack, there would be pray for Iran hashtags. There would be buildings, national buildings that changed into the Iranian colors. You think there would be some kind of condolences, but no. Donald Trump's White House released a very condescending statement blaming Iranian victims of the ISIS terrorist attack on Iran. And now, just moments from now, is responding by bombing Iranian-backed forces in southern Syria. This is just the second attack that happened 2 days ago where U.S. coalition warplanes bombed Syrian government troops, the same Syrian government troops and pro-Iranian troops who were fighting against the rebels that are mostly entangled with ISIS and al-Nusra. They are fighting Al-Qaeda. They are fighting radical Islamic terrorists, and the U.S. government is bombing them for that and blaming terrorist attacks that happen in their own country on them. Now, it's also important to understand that there's a greater context here because recently Saudi Arabia and 5 other nation states in the Middle East closed their borders with Qatar. Qatar then asked for Iran for help. Iran suffered a terrorist attack. Iran blamed Saudi Arabia, and now Iran is promising revenge. With all of these events colluding together, there's a major storm brewing right now within the Middle East that could lead to catastrophic war, and the United States is siding with the terrorists and Saudi Arabia during this huge rift that's happening between major alliances inside of the Middle East. But yet, for some dumb asinine reason, Comey's a lot more responsible than this world war brewing inside of the Middle East right now. Now, of course, Iran is blaming Saudi Arabia behind these deadly terrorist attacks in their country because, yeah, Saudi Arabia is the chief exporter of Sunni Wahhabism and terrorism all throughout the freaking world. And as we have documented here time and time again, there are so many documents, there are so many actions that prove single-handedly that Saudi Arabia finances ISIS and Al-Qaeda and al-Nusra and all these other terrorist groups inside of the Middle East. It is clear as day day. But yet Donald Trump is siding with Saudi Arabia against Iran, who is fighting these Wahhabist terrorists that go to countries like the United Kingdom and then blow up the civilians there. Now, with Qatar being blocked diplomatically from its borders, Turkey is coming up and offering up their soldiers in that small country, and Iran is offering them food. Since their border is blocked right now, other countries are lending a hand to make sure that the country is not starved to death. And in another major geopolitical pivot move, Qatar's foreign minister will visit Moscow on Saturday, since of course we know Russia, that has been fighting with the Syrian government against the rebels and radical Islamic terrorists that Saudi Arabia finances, sees Saudi Arabia as an enemy. Saudi Arabia, on the other hand, is offering up an ultimatum to Qatar, saying that they need to meet 10 demands in 24 hours or else. That else probably means more economic or even real warfare against the small country of Qatar. So we're seeing the lines being drawn here with Turkey, Iran, Qatar standing against Saudi Arabia, Egypt, the UAE, Israel, and of course the United States that's backing them. And all this is happening while a real war is waging in Yemen, a proxy war between Iran and Saudi Arabia, with Saudi Arabia and the United States fighting alongside Al-Qaeda against Houthi rebels that are aligned with Iran. So the war is actually hot right now and is on the verge of exploding into an entire global conflict, especially with Russia and the United States being involved on these two particular sides. And I have to think to myself, what the hell is wrong with the US government and Donald Trump aligning themselves with countries like Saudi Arabia? I mean, their national football team just refused to even join in on the minutes of silence for the London terror victims. These people, ideologically, politically, economically, are the #1 sponsors of terrorism. Saudi Arabia just detained their #1 activist that wants women to simply drive in a car. 14 Saudi Arabian protesters from the Shiite community are facing execution for just wanting to protest their government. And now Belgium is even refusing to sell arms to Saudi Arabia after they beheaded 47 people recently. Germany may follow soon, but what will Donald Trump and your government that's financed by your taxes do? Oh yeah, they're being used to finance the very worst enemy, those terrorists, those Wahhabists, those Sunnis that actually come into our country and bomb the crap out of us, and we're doing it covertly. As we talked about on this show previously before, declassified documents coming out right now proving how the US government knowingly armed ISIS and claimed that their weapons were lost. Last week, we reported more weapons and arms and trucks being lost inside of the Middle East, and then concluded that they pretty much ended up in the hands of ISIS, and now we're getting the declassified documents that actually prove this is happening. And it's happening on purpose with your money. While we're being inundated with more propaganda and distractions, especially with this Comey thing, we're also finding out the layers of propaganda that are being peeled, revealing the true story of a famous picture that's being used by the US government, by the US military, by the US State Department in order to justify more wars of aggression against the Syrian government. As we're finding out from the father of the famous Aleppo boy, who just exposed how the United States and the White Helmets lied to the world about the propaganda photo that they've been using in order to push their greater geopolitical agenda, and exposed how the White Helmets weren't interested in helping this poor little boy, but were just using him as a photo op while denying him medical treatment so they could get the photos out there. And those photos worked very effectively as propaganda by the US mainstream media that perpetrated them all over the world and used it as a way to justify their continued push for the ouster of President Bashar al-Assad of Syria, and using it as an excuse to emotionally manipulate us so we would go along with their program. Talking about more manipulative programming, we have Philip DeFranco, who just released an amazing video talking about a hit piece that the US mainstream media wrote about him in The Verge and Fortune magazine today, and ultimately exposed how it was just a bunch of lies against him by the old dinosaur media, who is threatened, of course, by people like him and everyone else out there who's doing a way better job than the mainstream media and replacing them. This video is definitely a must-watch, and the link to it will be in the description below, and I recommend seeing it just to understand how low down and dirty and pathetic the old media is, and how ultimately this is a great sign for everybody else because it's showing that we, the new media, are becoming more effective every single day, that they see us more of a threat, that they're willing to succumb to low down and dirty tricks in order to try to remove us. Instead of doing just, the right thing of saying, how about I just do my job better and cover stories honestly and give 2 points of view here? No, we're just going to try to crap on our competition and destroy them, as we've seen them do through the YouTube adpocalypse that has mainly been brought on by the mainstream media. So that's our show. Let me know what you think in the comments section below. And of course, don't forget to check out steemit.com/@LukeWeAreChange, because I have to say, if it wasn't for cryptocurrencies and altcoins, this media operation would not be around. YouTube has cut about 70% of my YouTube ad revenue, and without the cryptocurrency community, I would not be able to sustain this operation. And platforms like Steemit, which is like a Reddit social media platform that allows me to post stories. If you upvote it, I get cryptocurrencies. I'm able to turn those cryptocurrencies into actual dollars to pay for the bills with this news organization. And it's a new social media platform that's not Facebook or Google or YouTube that I really do believe in. And if you're interested, check it out. Just your upvote, just your attention helps sustain this media operation. Thank you again so much for watching. Stay tuned for more news here on youtube.com/WeAreChange.